Hello again, World War Toons fans. Today we have Meng model kit number 18. I believe they have more than 20. I think they're up to 20, but then they have this Chinese one that's not numbered. So this is the M24 Chaffee tank. This is the replacement for the M5 Stuart in historical terms. Let's see. So, yeah, there's some other tanks. I built that one. I'll have to get around to that. They have these weird cartoonish ones, but it does come with the cool Santa Claus. And this thing says 2021 for the copyright. This is a video game, by the way. I assume this is something to do with the video game there. And then it's nice to give you some stats here. There's some stuff from the video game. So this is named after General Chaffee, and around 4,700 vehicles are made. This is basically late in the World War II era, and then it later on worked its way through the Korean War and Vietnam War. And they're the specs there. So 18 tons, crew of 5, 75mm gun, and it goes 56 kilometers per hour. Okay, so let's take a look at the plastic, see if there are issues. Historically, they're generally well-designed kits, but I've had some fitment problems. You know, even not even concerning paint, but like some of the peg holes are just too small. The turrets were warped and required a lot of work. Okay, well, so far that looks okay. Nothing really weird. The plastic looks pretty good. The hull, some parts have fallen off the sprue. Yeah, so parts 4 and 7, 6, 13 are falling off. So 1, 2, 3, I should be in good shape. It looks like the 3 parts are there. Alright. Yeah, so luckily this turret is all one top half, the bottom. But the ones that are split in the center like that, they seem to be a pain to put together properly. Alright. And then the decals, as usual, they're really jam-packed on that piece of paper, so you have to have some really fine scissors to cut away the numbers and all that stuff. And then the instructions, as usual, are pretty straightforward, and you just gotta read numbers and arrow directions. But I find this probably smart to not glue anything, because the fitment issues again. If you glue it and then later on you find that you have to remove it, you're gonna have to totally modify the thing. So yeah, I'm gonna avoid gluing stuff until the very end, until I know what to do. And then some color schemes and paint recommendations. Alright, so as usual, I'm gonna fast forward to some music and come back to the review. So we're back now, and it's funny, I saw this image, I guess this is from the Vietnam War, and this is what I wanted to do, but my airbrush got all clogged up and I couldn't put down fine lines, so I just ended up with something that looks just more like that, totally different, although there's a little bit of striping there. So one thing about military tanks, especially cartoon ones, is you don't have to be realistic, right? Just have some freedom with your camo, because most tank crews, I believe, they're just off on their own. They can camo their tank as they want, or not. At least during World War II, that was the case. So build-wise, there was definitely some issues. So I want to talk about that at first. And it's these tiny little hand grabs. I broke both of these two trying to push them into their holes. Let me see if I can focus. I was very lucky that I was able to find the parts. Essentially, I pushed them down and the middle part just snapped right at each corner. So I was lucky to find it. I basically glued in both sides, and then I crazy glued the middle piece back on, and that happened on both sides. So you gotta be really careful with this particular kit. This is the first kit where I've actually broken something trying to put it together. So you gotta have a tiny set of drill bits and really drill out everything if you feel any resistance, because this plastic is really brittle. So keep that in mind. That was mentioned in the Oddball channel's video too, but I didn't watch that video beforehand. Or I forget. As far as how I laid up the paint, I actually put a lot of effort on this one. I used hairspray twice. So this is the raw green plastic, as you can see here. And so I used Vallejo Primer Black, because Vallejo is water-based. It's not so bad for you. It's not as bad for you as chemical-based paints. So after the black, then I laid down a gunmetal color from Vallejo again. And then I put hairspray over the whole model. After the hairspray, I laid on Vallejo Rust color, and then I hairsprayed it again, and then I laid on the olive drab, and then the little lighter bluish green color, and then I weathered it with the water and a paintbrush. So the water broke through the original green layers, and if the paintbrush wasn't pushed down too hard, I would get to the rust color. Sorry, I keep losing focus. This thing is really small. So I'd hit the rust color, but if I went further, I would actually hit the gunmetal color, which is like the edges here. If I went even further than that, I would hit the black primer. So there's 3 layers of colors I could break through to, and so that's, an effective way to mimic chipping instead of painting on the chips, right? Literally chip the paint away like a real tank. Alright, so that's what I did there. I added this chain, as you can see. It's just a cheap, like, $1 necklace. And I used UV glue to set it because I kept on trying to fall out because it was actually a metal chain and quite heavy. And then I weathered it with paint and pastels. There's a couple paint washes going over this thing, I believe. I can't remember anymore. Yeah, let's see. Articulation-wise, this little gun, I guess... I can't remember if this moves. Maybe it doesn't. Never mind. That's a different tank. So nothing on the bottom moves other than the tracks, but as you can see, the paint doesn't want to stick to these rubber tracks, so I've held it here a few times and the paint's already wearing away. So, yeah, you really don't want to fondle the tracks too much. You put them on once. After you weather the tank, I put them on, and then I weathered the tracks. Alright. So there's some, there even is some clear coat over these tracks. Here's that black primer, and so I actually took some alcohol on a Q-tip so I could put this decal on so I know where it stands in the series and what it is. I really wish they would just write all this text into the base, because they have the room to do so. Alright, so that's the base there. Yeah, a few of these parts, there was some tight fits, so I drilled them out just to be safe again. After breaking those other 2 loops. I saw an image of some Chafees with some sort of array up here. This is a brass piece meant for Gundam detailing, and I just happened to have it laying around. It looked kind of like the photographs, so I just plugged it in there with crazy glue. I'm not sure what else is supposed to be here. I think an antenna, just a long whip antenna, but I saw ones like this, so that's what happened there. These two hatches do open. This one here is quite large, but it's just a C-shape hinge, so I could push this that way and this whole hatch will come off, so it's not strong. So be very careful. This hatch is a little bit better as far as durability goes, because these two side plates are trapping the pins of this hatch, and then you push the side plates into the turret here. But it's such a small opening. I'm not sure what you can get in there as far as a character goes. Okay, the turret does move up and down. I mean, not the turret, the actual main gun. So that's it for the movement, other than the turret itself spinning. As you can see, these turret fits are really tight. Alright, so granted you don't see any of that paint scratching off. And so you gotta be really careful twisting this, because you can easily break, I think, all these little loops. So I always try to twist it on these two corners, so I don't actually break any of the little bits. Yeah, it's really tight. But at least it's a 90-degree offset, so it's unlikely that it's gonna fall apart. Okay, so that's this build. It's funny, I don't really love this tank that much, but I spent a lot of time on it. I remember building like a Tamiya model kit, a realistic one, as a kid. I found the asymmetry interesting, you know, how this just has lights on this side. I do also find that there's no spare tracks. I mean, this is a light tank, but I see plenty of images where there'd be track links up on here, but this kit skipped it all. Maybe because it just has so many other little bits to put on here. There's a lot of parts on this one. So here's the predecessor, the M5 Stuart. This one has no paint, it just has Tamiya brown paint wash and some pigments on it. My first build. And then here's the Sherman tank. Unfortunately, the Sherman is really small. I looked at the dimensions, and the Sherman is definitely much bigger than an M5 Stuart. It's a medium-sized tank. This is a light tank. And dimensionally, it's supposed to be much longer and a little bit taller and wider, I believe. But for some reason, it's physically smaller than this one. So this is a bit of a out of scale, which is strange to say about cartooned vehicles. But if you're gonna, you know, have different sized tanks, maybe they should be roughly proportional to each other. And so here's an example, you know, a heavy Tiger tank here. Look how huge that is, right? So this makes sense to me. A light tank, heavy tank, right? But the Sherman's a medium. It should be in between in size, in my opinion. Okay, so they're my US tanks. They're all kind of green. This Sherman also has no paint other than paint washes. This is the only one I actually bothered painting. But I just want to keep them all different, and they are different in their green saturation, so I'm happy with the results. Okay, let's get this thing spinning on its own. So it physically looks pretty cool, you know, because it's not a symmetric tank very much. It's just that these little hoop things, you gotta be, if you're gonna build this kit, I highly recommend you get some tiny drill bits and like a pin vise. They're really cheap, you know. A pin vise is basically a handheld drill, and this one has a chuck, so it's really easy to use. And I think those holes I drilled out to 0.9 millimeters. 0.7 was too loose, and 0.8 was too loose, but one might have been too loose after I drilled it out. So yeah, buy some of those. Okay guys, well, another fine product from Meng. Not as good as the other ones, just because I broke it, but detail wise it looks pretty awesome. Alright, look at all the bits hanging off of the thing. Alright, so I guess I'll see you in the next tank build. See ya, bye now.